Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Kopitiam Council, the third episode for this week's edition. So, we've already talked about Thailand, our neighbor. So, we already were looking at things internationally or regionally, to be more specific. We already looked at things on the national level when we looked at the UMNO General Assembly. So, I think we kind of want to take it back home over to Sabah, back to what happened in Kota Kinabalu just about 3 or 4 weeks ago, which is the Prime Minister came to Sabah not as the Prime Minister, but as the President for Parti Keadilan Rakyat, PKR, his own party, political party, where he had a speech given at the PKR event in SICC, Sabah International Convention Centre, here in Kota Kinabalu. So the turnout was quite big, Hafiz, from what I can gather. There was a lot of people that showed up there. Obviously, I didn't go because I'm not a party member, not that I'm interested, but still, I heard a great number of people came to support, which kind of shows that, oh, okay, PKR is still a party that has quite a lot of numbers, a lot of support over here in Sabah. So, I think where we can start off is that the speech given by the Prime Minister himself, um, was also addressed not just to PKR but to his allies in GRS, the Sabah State Government Party. So there's a lot of things to unpack here. It's a PKR event, but you invite GRS members over to see. Okay, well, listening to an ally, sort of political ally, coming out to say that, oh, okay, we need to strengthen the spirit of PKR in Sabah. When in fact that nearly almost every party is in GRS these days, entering the coalition in Sabah. So PKR strengthening, wouldn't that mean also a zero-sum game, so to speak? Or are they thinking of, okay, well, strengthen PKR to challenge the opposition, Warisan, or UMNO that broke off from GRS? What do we say from here?
Fun fact, PKR Sabah has one of the largest membership in the country. I think only losing out to Selangor. I mean, by right? Number in population in Selangor is much bigger. Yes, there were GRS leadership members as well, top officials. There was UMNO Bung was there as well, and other component parties. And like you mentioned, he was there to speak as the president of PKR, not a prime minister. I think these people were just like expecting that, oh, he's gonna speak again as a prime minister. No, no, no. This is a PKR event, and he was using his cap as a president of PKR. So he, of course, he took some jabs to some party because Sabah, I think we talked about this in the previous episodes of Kopitiam Council, where we acknowledge how weak PKR is in Sabah. It's hugely unpopular. It's never really have a huge gain or lose of their seats. It's just changes. Like last general election, they lose out in Putatan, but they gain in Spangar. So it's still net zero. Like you don't gain, you don't lose anything. So that's PKR status quo right now in Sabah. But Anwar thinks he being a prime minister will change this. That's what I think the whole message to the whole party workforce, that please work harder because we have this one opportunity that we never had before. PKR was never really at helm because before this it was Tun Mahathir. So now the president of PKR is the prime minister. Do what you want. Let's get the work started. And this is his signaling because, like I mentioned, general elections is 3 years away from now. And one of the key highlights that he mentioned in his speech, these are the things that he do beyond what necessarily to be done. Like he mentioned about the financial aid to Sabah. Which is after that, Hajiji said that this is not part of the 40%. So again, what Anwar did was like comparing to you were asking about 40%, but we give you 16%. But again, like you mentioned, Adi, in the previous episode, you might want to elaborate later. This is not the discrepancy of these numbers are not there, and Anwar just trying his best as a politician, talking like a real politician. So he just pluck some numbers and say that 16 million was given to Sabah or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's true, but in certain context, it's not true. So you want to go ahead and tell us what's that?
More than happy to, because we did cover this when Anwar gave his speech at the KDCA, Kadazan Dusun Cultural Association, during the Kamatan event a few months back, where he mentioned that, Sabah has been given 16 billion, which is 16 billion ringgit ever since he became Prime Minister, which apparently is, his words, more than the 40% revenue sharing that is owed to Sabah under the federal constitution. Okay. But then now he's coming to say that whether that was a Freudian slip or whether or not he intentionally wanted to say that, or whether he was trying to play some kind of crowd, whatever, he now had to clarify it over here, saying that, oh no, the 16 billion was just for is total allocation, not for development only. So touching nothing back, not clarifying on the 40%, because the issue that we took here was that, okay, if 40% is less than the 16 billion that was given, show your formula. Show us how you counted it. Show us where is it that, what kind of revenue are you deriving it from? Are you deriving it from net revenue? Are you deriving it only from tax revenue? What is it? And that is the question that we want to know, because this is something that we've been fighting for, and there's a lot of people now having different ideas on how much the 40% is, and for Anwar to come out and say that no, we already know that this is the 16 billion is more than 40%. No, we want to have the proof. We want to have the transparency. How did you get to this? So we can actually estimate, and we can hold it accountable. And what was the word that we can check it. We can audit it. This is another point of issue, and I think it was rightfully so that the Chief Minister Hajiji was mentioned that no, this is different. The 40% will always be different. It is under the Constitution, and they'll continue to struggle and fight for it. So good on this Chief Minister for reiterating on that point. But it seems that the Prime Minister needs to get his narrative straight here anytime it comes down to Sabah, because now the magnifying glass is on that 16 billion. Not to mention how that 16 billion is even distributed. I have a mind to say that it is the total allocations that was given through each of the yearly federal budgets since he became Prime Minister. So every year, the federal government, the federal budget allocates a particular amount of money to Sabah. And I think last year's budget was the highest, I think about 6 billion ringgit. They say it was the highest. However, we have to go back to this same argument. That allocation, no matter what allocation you give, is never fully utilized because of the bureaucratic red tape. It's not easy to make use of that allocation. So the state government wants to do something out of that 6 billion, 16 billion. They have to go through a bureaucratic process to get it approved. It's not one lump sum payment, and at least on average, 25% has to be given back to the federal government, which they'll somehow use it for the next federal budget. They recycle it. So that is the issue here, as well as the distribution as well. So I don't think Anwar or the Prime Minister is easily escaping that contentious issue, and it still remains up in the air. What does he mean? 16 billion. Show where it is exactly the 16 billion, or how its correlation, why he made a correlation to the 40%. That's a completely different thing. So that is one thing that needs to be reiterated. And I think maybe in the future, the Sabahan leaders can be a bit more direct with challenging as the Prime Minister on his Freudian slip. So any kind of politicking that he's attempting to do. Say, no, you're on a home turf, remember? So you got to play by our rules as well. You got to actually be a bit more respectful. So yeah, and another thing that I think there was one contentious statement saying that by the Prime Minister saying that, okay, if you want what you want, you have to be nice with us. You have to agree to be friends with us. So putting things conditionally on your allies, right, when they're already giving you the support, kind of seems tone deaf, don't you think? Or maybe because he can easily do that to Sabahan leaders is why he would say something, the Prime Minister would say something that, you try that in Sarawak, then I think you can say bye-bye to your fixed deposit.
Yeah, I think he was speaking from the context of comparing with the opposition that was refused even to discuss on the allowance as a MP. So I think when he draws that comparison, like, if you want to something, ask nicely. Unlike the others who didn't even want to go to the table to discuss. So, but I also agree with you, Adi. That's in politics. It's very dynamic, and we have similar issues with Sarawak. But look at Sarawak, what Sarawak did. Um, the premier of Sarawak was never really, beating around the bush. He was very straightforward when he was said about things, and they got things that they wanted to. This I think should be emulated by our leaders as well, Sabahan leaders, and like rightly mentioned, that need to be more direct when they speak, not just a week after Anwar made that statement, which just really bit the purpose, like you are chief minister, you can call a press conference any time of the day. 12 midnight, journalists will come to your house, chief minister. So please do what's you think is right for the Sabahans, not just for JRS survival in this upcoming election, state election, maybe in the minds of Gigi. So this is also being touched by Anwar when he talked about the survival, how PKR wants to expand. I think at the expense of the parties that actually leaders sitting in front of him. So especially GRS, right? And there's a lot of dynamics there where Shahelmi as well as the deputy chief minister just sitting few in between few peoples with Bumiputra. So this is another dynamic which internal that really unique just for Sabah. There's no, I'm not in Sarawak. In Peninsula it was just okay. Zahid bulldozing everyone, but in Sabah a little bit dynamic. Even Zahid trying to walking on a fine line here. Just don't want to upset either Shahelmi or Bumiputra as well. So Anwar comes in and boasts about how he wants to help PKR expand in Sabah, where everyone looking at each other like, oh, who's gonna give him the seats? That's what the impression that I get from all the sitting in front of them. So I think Mustafa Sakmud as the PKR chief, Sabah chief, has a tremendous task ahead of him to negotiate, and he is just at helm less than a year. Let's say they were talking about this right now, ongoing. Maybe they start doing this now. He is very new as well. I don't know how he can carry that for and deliver for PKR Sabah. So I think that's what's very, I think, immature about Sabah PKR. They have a change of president or chief, and whoever heading to that negotiation should be prepared, all the way prepared to demand as much as they can when it comes to seat discussion.
Yeah, when it comes to PKR Sabah, because you mentioned Mustafa Sakmud as the new Sabah chief, right? Along with Deputy Pitu Galim, who is also the Adun for Inanam. So it's okay. Obviously, it's starting quite small, but then again, PKR has always held in small voter share in Sabah. So expansion. Expand to where exactly? Because PKR, as a party, their success lies with getting support from urban voters, urban-centric voters. And you never think of PKR as the party that's able to penetrate the more rural areas, which Sabah mostly is. Well, if you're looking at urban areas such as Kinabalu, Tawau, Penampang, maybe. Historically, yes, PKR has had some inroads in these particular areas, but where else can they go in terms of harnessing their strength? Because PKR, what kind of message can you deliver over to Sabahans exactly? That's the issue, I think, when it comes to parties from Malaya coming over here to Sabah. What is their political messaging? Because okay, reform is one thing, of course, but reform is something that's on the tables for a lot of political parties. What makes you any different? In fact, I think Sabahan regionalism, the narrative that is more important than reform at the current moment, trying to empower Sabah's infrastructure first before talking about all these wide sweeping and very fancy reforms, democratization that PKR peddles, right? And in a way, PKR is not the only one that is doing that. DAP has been very successful in garnering Sabahan votes through that narrative as well. So in a way, PKR will be having to compete with its own allies, which carried the coalition, right? DAP won way more seats in the general election and has carried Pakatan Harapan over to form the unity government. So it's very awkward because now where would PKR go? Obviously, they would go to opposition seats, which held by the Warisan Party, mostly consist themselves concentrated in the East Coast. Now, PKR's only experience in the East Coast is Tawau, which is urban. So where would they target? Sandakan? That's already allied seat as well. So would PKR Sabah have to develop a new strategy that is very contextualized, which may not be 100% in line with the main central party's vision. So in a way, it's a toss-up between giving the Sabahan branch more autonomy and function of what they need to do. It's hard to say as well because Mustafa Sakmud, Pitu Galim, these they occupy seats that are on the west coast, so may not have the same expertise in dealing or even developing a strategy to garner votes from the east, which is held by a lot of Morrison legislative assemblymen. So uphill battle for PKR unless they just want to play the supporting role in helping out the allied parties, swell up their numbers. PKR, in a way, it's still in an infancy trial phase for Sabah, and let's not forget a lot of politicians in Sabah were former PKR. They left the party. For example, Daryl Liking left PKR to Warisan. So there's that history with a lot of former PKR members leaving to join other parties which are local because they did not agree with the direction of PKR itself. So building up confidence from there, that's another challenge that PKR would have to handle.
Yeah, the rhetoric Sabah for Sabahans again gonna play up against like a broken record for the next state election. But just wanna divert a little bit from PKR Sabah and speech Anwar made in SICC. Recently, a Bumiputra economic transformative plan was happening last few days, and one of the pillars they mentioned there is that the they want to ensure the empowerment for Sabah and Sarawak in terms of infrastructure and other things that needed, because this is a dire need for Sabah and Sarawak. But it's a very small column, a small pillar within the entire framework. Adi, is this still relevant? Where we have this every year annually economics, Bumiputra economic transformation plan, whatever. I'm sure the launching costs hundreds of thousands of ringgit. Should we again do this?
I mean, okay, for those that don't know, the Bumiputra Economic Transformation Plan, or Putra 35, is aimed to ensure 70% worker participation, economic participation from Bumiputra up to 70%, and market share up to probably 30% market share. So like I said, when it comes to these plans, I'm going to look at this from a Sabahan perspective, okay? Because you mentioned their perspective is to be inclusive to Sabah and Sarawak. But this is a Bumiputra plan. So it's a plan for Sabahan, Sarawakian, Malayan Bumiputras. What about the rest of non-Bumiputras in Sabah, Sarawak? So inclusive. They made they gave some insurance saying that everyone would be included, non-Bumiputras as well. But when you put it under Bumiputra plan, right? I'm sorry to say, it's going to be Bumiputra centric, right? So it's going to be focusing on Bumiputras at the expense of possibly the expense of non-Bumiputras, which Sabah, Sarawak, we also have our own non-Bumiputras as well. We also have Bumiputras as well. How many plans have we had in this plan as well? But the Bumiputras in Sabah still makes up a great amount of those that are living in poverty, that are economically disadvantaged. Uh, Similar story to Sarawak and to an extent as well in Malaya as well. So because I know you like to go through this rhetoric, saying that like the Haffisz, like saying that we're doing the same thing over and over again. That's the definition of insanity. So um, well, this time around, right? The When I look for the plan, the whole idea is for government to be more involved in upskilling, training, providing assistance, right? But to me, it sounds like just a repackaged words that they've always done before, which is, oh, the state will take care of you, the government will take care of you. But I think we've argued saying that the more state involvement, more state assistance, the more reliant Bumiputra will become on the state. The state does not have the monopoly on economic upliftment. It still has to play with the market. And in a way, the market is always geared to be more, how do you say, to be neutered. Not, I wouldn't say neutered, adjusted to fit more towards what the government wants. So, in a way, government regulation, it can give good things as well in terms of social capital and social equity, but at the same time, it hampers potential for growth as well from other kinds of sectors. So, this is another case of, oh, let the government hold your hand through these hard times, and will ensure that you'll be uplifted. But okay, for what? Okay, you want to empower the Bumiputras to what end? Is it for the consolidation of a stronger middle class? Is it to increase? Is there proof that increase in Bumiputra productivity will yield um, a huge amount of economic benefits? I think definitely will. But I mean, how it's quantified is how we need to know. So there's a bit of utility in the rhetoric. So people cannot just say, like, oh, this is Bumiputra. But no. If you have a good argument, say no. Okay, by uplifting Bumiputra towards this and this and this, it means that the whole country will prosper. I think the only one that's ever managed to pass to this rhetoric was Najib, saying that when the pie is bigger, everyone gets a bigger share, as an analogy. So maybe that would be the only thing I can comment about this transformation plan. Of course, another thing to highlight is that the monitoring agencies for this plan will be the Bumiputra Economic Council, chaired by the Prime Minister, the Working Committee, chaired by Zahid, and I believe the Steering Committee, chaired by Rafizi. All people who are, in the higher parts of power, especially Prime Minister and Zahid. So how it is grounded in reality. Of course, they had the Congress Economic Bumiputra, where a lot of the experts came to weigh in their thoughts, right? But at the end of the day, the decision making is based on these three monitoring agencies and maybe other agencies, but these three hold a lot of influence over it.
Well, before we end our discussion about this, I think I want to state my problem here. This is my problem. Any economic transformative plan, such things like the Congress Bumiputra, all these special privileges for the Bumiputra, has been happening since the new economic model, since the late Tun Abdul Razak. I think most people, including myself, agree that whatever was laid out by Tun Abdul Razak in the first maybe 10, 20 years was very effective. I think that's why UMNO, as the government back then, still addicted to this kind of policy. And of course, Anwar was born from that mold. Here's my problem. We keep doing it up post the 90s, post 2000, until today. We keep doing it every year and year and year and year again. Every prime minister that ever come to power talk about it, boast about it, and use the rhetoric about it. But it's just the same. Nothing drastically changes in the last 20 or 40 years. That's a fact. And this is a problem that I think happening only because Malay is the largest voters share in Malaysia. If Malay is the second largest, if Malay is the third largest, if Malay the smallest, the minority, no one will bet an eye on the privileges of Malay. And that's why Malay have this. So I think the Malay as a whole is the victim of any politicians that try to use this as a political leverage. And we should call out any government, including Anwar Ibrahim, right? Because he would say that, we would do this not at the expense of Chinese Indian. We still do merit, whatever. But like you mentioned, if it's Bumiputra, it's gonna be Bumiputra centric. It's an oxymoron to say that we are gonna help the Malays, whatever, but without the expense of Chinese and Indian. Then just do just do
overall economic plan, right?
Yeah, a transformative plan for Malaysia. Period. That's it. So why you want to do it? Because they know this is what gonna win the support of the Malay. Huge chunks of the Malay. I'm not saying all. Of course, Malay in the urban area will not buy into this kind of nonsense. But this is, I credit one thing that they know this is they have to play, but also the other thing that we talk about how in Thailand, like whoever in powers doesn't want to touch on the monarchy. So I think this is the same thing in Malaysia. Like, it's sort of like, of course, we have our own monarchy issue as well, and then on top of that, the Bumiputra supremacy kind of issue as well. I hope the next prime minister would be different, but I think also looking at numbers, looking at the possibility projection is not gonna be the case. But as a Sabahan or as a Malaysian, I think Adi, we can just only hope for something better. Well, I don't know. I don't know. That's maybe gonna happen in the future. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, the prime minister said that don't criticize this plan unless you have a solution. So at least you have one, Haffiz. So I guess our criticism is now valid.
Well, that's it. We have about Anwar's speech in SICC and a little bit about transformative plan, economic plan for Bumiputra. If you have any other topics that you like us to cover, please put down on the comment section below. And if you're listening this on Spotify, please share it to your friends. And we have also on our appearance on Instagram and TikTok if you prefer the short format. And subscribe to us and let us know what the topics that we should cover. And do you have any closing remarks, Adi?
I think in a way when we do these kinds of podcasts right now, we don't, if you're a PKR fan, don't take this personally. I kind of supported Anwar becoming prime minister, so I want to get the best out of my vote. I want maximum value for my vote. So holding the prime minister accountable, we all do. I don't want to see him fail, of course. I want to see him succeed because at the end of the day, he's the captain that steers the ship, right? That we are all the passengers on board. So I think the captain can only see one direction, but the crew and the people on board walks around the ship, they see everything. So we can always report it over to say that, hey, okay, well, there's something wrong here, there's something wrong there. Doesn't mean that it's saying that no, you're bad. It's just saying that there is an issue here that needs to be resolved. And in Sabah, many issues needs to be resolved. So I'm asking it, saying that this is a Bumiputra economic plan, right? Don't need to say that. We obviously know it's to gain your voter share. When Bumiputra is brought up, what sparks in your head is always going to be Bumiputra Malays in West Malaysia. Rarely there's the Bumiputras in East Malaysia, in Borneo, in Sabah, Sarawak, really get brought up. And these people are definitely in great need for assistance, not because they're Bumiputra, but just because of their economic standing right now.
If you're watching on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. You know how YouTube algorithm works, so that more people can see this video. And with that, we see you guys on the next episode. So goodbye for now.